Good.
Okay, guys, had a little hiccup there. So before we start this, we need confirmation if you can hear us. So pop through on the super chats and let Owen know if you can hear us. Yes, no, or they're probably still filtering in. Can you hear us? Test, test. No? Yes, they can hear us? Okay, try the other mics. Jim, Matt.
Can you hear me? That was a little loud.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
A little distortion.
All right, guys. We're going to start this again. Sorry for the hiccup. This is the start of season 3 of Table Talk. Some administrative stuff to put out there. I want to thank Marek Labs for sponsoring Table Talk. MarekHealth.com. I guess I should have said Marek Health, not Marek Labs, but I'm new to this whole thing. But want to thank them for stepping up to help bring back Table Talk. To be honest with you guys, I was thinking it was going to be another couple months before we were going to be able to bring it back. So we're not 100% ready, but to be honest with this as well, I've never been 100% ready for everything I've ever done in my life. I just kind of jump in and figure it out as we're going. So, Smokie stepped up. We worked this out to be able to have them help us with the Table Talk. So if you don't know what Marek Health is, it's kind of like a comprehensive health test type thing. I'll get better at explaining it. But what I want to say about it is if you need labs done, and there's been a lot of talk about getting your lab work done, Marek Health is the place to go for that. Not only have I seen looking through, and I've gotten labs done quarterly for probably the last 15 years. So not only is their pricing significantly less than what I've seen with other lab companies, they also have a health network set up for you to be able to speak to a doctor to review your panels, which is extremely important, especially in today's world where a lot of you guys, if you get your labs done, you're afraid to go see your doctor because all they're gonna do is bitch and complain and tell you that you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that, you shouldn't be lifting weights and all this other kind of stuff, where there are important indicators to get looked at to be able to be sure. Not only is this, I want to be clear, this isn't just TRT. The labs are comprehensive for anything health related. There is a discount code for this, which is Table Talk. Again, I want to thank Smokie for stepping up to help out. He's known him for many, many years, and he's been a really good dude across the board. Jim, when we started this a little bit ago, that didn't work out, can attest to the same thing.
He's always been a solid guy, and that's something to say.
So big time. And if it wasn't for him, I don't know if I would accept the sponsorship. So there's two things that kind of go with this sponsorship is I have to like the company that I'm working with. And in this industry, there's not many that I do. So I would rather not do a podcast than promote a company that's just bullshit. So the guests today are Jim Wendler and Matt Rhodes, which are more than guests to me. They're good friends of mine. So while I'm promoting and pimping out stuff, as we were saying before, if you caught it, well, actually they didn't because they couldn't hear anything. I was telling you to go to jimwendler.com and buy 5 books because he had to buy Matt's steak last night.
Yes.
And a lot of t-shirts as well. So books, t-shirts, the quality is great through there. So that's jimwendler.com. He's got some other things that he's working on that we'll talk about. Some we'll talk about, some we won't. It's just kind of how we do things around here. Well, you learn after a while.
This totally unscripted, right?
Yeah, well, you learn after a while, you can pre-promote stuff, but shit happens,
Yes.
Sometimes a lot of the things, when you see the final product, if it is a book or a video or whatever it is, you don't like it.
Nope.
And
I've been there.
Yeah, I know how Jim is with things like that. It may take him 10 years to do one book, but he's
going to be done right
until it's done right. And there's a lot to be said about that. And I can circle that back with Smokie and Marek Health as well. So you want to make sure that the people that you're promoting are doing things the right way. So we will just roll off into this conversation and just see where it goes from there.
All right.
So here we go. So how'd you meet Smokie?
I met him through Super Train, Mark Bell, and I would see him at the Arnold and anything like that, and like the pre-Arnold, like if you go out to dinner or something like that, and he's always been super nice, super polite, and you know how in this there's a this industry has changed greatly since you and I, really first started. And you can, there's a lot of great people and there's a lot of assholes too. You're right here, bud.
Yeah.
I just jacked up the mic.
So it's always nice to hear and know people who are good people. And that doesn't mean that, how do I put this? It's beyond just the information they have. You just want to be with good people. So
I agree.
I always had treated me well. And that's kind of one of the things, how do they treat you? How do they treat your family? I've had some dealings with some people that no one really liked. And my litmus test was they always treated Juliet very well with respect. So I'm like, well, you don't get to decide who I'm friends with or who I talk to. It was just, I think that's super important. So
no, I use that. I mean, it's very important where I look at, Blaine's, those people that have been following me, he's on the spectrum. So I look at how people treat him. I can learn a lot about a person just by how they treat my kid. Now, I understand that, kids are kids. So some people just don't like kids. You get that. But you can still pick up a lot by how...
Well, there's a difference between being uncomfortable and not knowing and being hostile.
Yes.
Like we were talking, I was chaperoning my kids' field trip, and my wife and I'm like, kids are the worst. We're good to the kids. We're not mean to them. Mm-hmm. There's a big difference between being kind of hostile and to be honest, before you had kids, Dave, you're probably horrible with kids.
No, I didn't like them at all.
Yeah, and I got nothing in common with them.
Yeah.
You shit your pants.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't.
Not often.
Yes. Yes.
So, but it's always, even with coaches, you can tell most coaches are good, obviously good with kids. And, but there's some that are much better. They can get a lot out of their kids. And you have to treat kids differently. Some kids you can motherfuck them to death and they respond and they're okay with it. Other kids you have to be like, oh, you're doing great. I really like what you're doing. But that is a whole other conversation.
Would you say they pick up on it, that they can figure out, if you like them? I mean, I'm just thinking of kids in general as far as the coaching goes of that, because...
no matter who you are, if you're giving great effort and you have a good attitude, I will say something to you personally, aside from everyone else. And some kids, if you congratulate them in front of everyone, that's better for them. Other kids are very shy and you just take them aside. I took another kid a couple of weeks ago and I took him aside. I'm like, listen, man, you are doing amazing work here. I am super proud of you. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate everything you've given. And that kid changed forever. I'm not saying I'm the greatest coach, but he was his confidence went through the roof. And I don't know, maybe 2 weeks later or something, we did some crazy challenge, and he's not naturally the strongest kid, and he struggled. And I asked him, I said, boy, you probably fucking hate me right now. And he looked at me, he's like, I could never hate you, ever. Mm-hmm. And that was a real moment. And I was like, I was just busting his balls, you probably want to kill me right now. And it was like, no, man, I could never hate you. And I was like, wow, that was kind of a cool thing.
That's impactful. Me and Matt were talking yesterday about, high school kids, because we've all had coaches, as we were growing up, junior high and high school, that made a profound
it's unbelievable.
difference. And sometimes it is just one sentence.
Yes.
Pulling a kid aside and saying one thing, it can be extremely impactful, and you don't know.
Yeah.
20 years later, they come back and say, look, that was a vital moment.
Well, what's interesting is when you have the guys who are really good, and those kids have a swagger. You can bust their balls in front of everyone. They're okay. Yeah. Because they're at the top of the mountain and they get knocked down I don't want to say knocked down, but they get criticism because that's how it goes. But it's those kids at the bottom you really want to bring up. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to sugarcoat. I've gotten down to kids. I'm like, dude, that shit effort, right? Yes. I know you're better than that. That's different. But the higher Nick Saban can really kill, just get into guys, and then they know those guys will respond and be okay. But it's the kids, especially in high school, that aren't going to be the starters, that aren't going to be they need wins. Yes. They need some guy and so I think that's super important. I just, I told the head coach, and I said, listen, I have a different dream than you do. Like, he wants to win the state champ, and rightfully so. You're the head football coach. But I'm like, I just want to develop, like, I call them assassins. I want great kids, warriors, and I don't mean warrior like going to war. I want kids who are physically and mentally, kicking ass, and have that kind of confidence. I'm like, now, ironically, if we do that, not ironically, but if we do that, then we're going to be a better football team because the kids will be better. But I'm like, that's my main goal, is to make sure that these kids, when they leave here, are much better off physically and mentally. So,
you were going to say something?
I don't remember. I lost my train of thought. Well, probably wasn't important.
Yeah.
Anyways, but
probably the fucking birds.
Yeah. If anyone can't hear, there's a nest of birds somewhere in here.
Yeah, they're back.
But it is interesting that, like, what you say.
It's the birds.
It's some things that you say, like, you don't know what the kids will pick up on.
Yeah, that
Like,
makes me nervous sometimes.
Yeah, you're like, oh my God, what did I say? Did it? But it's amazing how what they retain. You can tell them how to do something the right way 500 times, and you got to tell them 501. But you say one little thing, innocuous or whatever, and that's what they remember. It's really weird.
Well, like when we talk about squatting or something, you have all these cues. Spread the floor.
Yeah.
And I remember I told someone, rip open your groin, like show your junk. And all of a sudden, oh, okay. I'm like, well, shit, that's got to be. I hate that I have to say, spread your taint, but I guess that's part of the repertoire now.
That works,
I can't keep this goddamn thing lit. I think I'm special.
It could be. It takes a little while. I got this masterful torque.
I'm an amateur. Look, Jim's got a big old thing there in his hand.
I'm still a rookie. So for those that are not seeing this on YouTube, we are fake cigar connoisseurs, right?
Novices.
It's like, oh, this is earthy. Like, what is earthy?
Organic.
The other one is, I don't know all the words, but you listen to these guys.
It's like wine people.
Yes, like the wine.
It's a nutty bouquet.
Exactly. Yeah, nutty. Whatever. What the fuck is nutty with the wine?
It's aggressive, but still docile.
Yeah.
Like a coy Dutch boy.
Is it going to get me wasted or not? Right.
Yeah. So what are you in town for?
Me?
Yes. No, Jim.
Jim. I just
been here 20 years.
Long semester, and we end next week, and can't text Jim. Texted Juliet. Hey Juliet, how's this weekend work? Come up and
there's a process.
Yeah, and she's like, yeah, come on up, and just for me, getting away, hanging out, all that stuff. So it's good to get away.
Yeah, we have a system. We have a system that we've worked out, which we're not telling anybody else because it's taken a long time to figure the system out.
Yeah, but it's flawless once you figure it out.
Once you figure it out, but
you're good to go.
Rest assured, if it's an emergency, he'll get back right away.
Yes.
But if it's not,
my mom doesn't even call me anymore.
Yeah. Well, we went back and forth a couple weeks ago. You and I did, and I'm like, so Dave's like, did Jim respond? I'm like, I sent him like 5 or 6. And then I got a response that had nothing to do with anything. It was just Jim was thinking and started typing. And I'm like, that's Jim. That's just the way it is. And
it works.
Some people get upset about that. You didn't respond.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things, like the three of us, Vincent, I would throw in there.
Yeah.
You don't care.
No, I mean that's why we have the podcast for the asshole that said, "Why do you keep having the same people on the podcast?" Yeah. Dave just sits down with his buddies, like, "What the fuck do you think the podcast?"
What are you going to sit down with your enemies?
I'm going to sit down with people I don't like. No,
we got 10 minutes, kid.
They're fucking birds.
Yeah, that's impressive up there.
Yeah. Yes.
They're in your fan. Is that where that is, or something?
Well, they're on the outside. We just opened the fan back up. Right, so it's an exhaust fan that blows it out.
Yeah.
So I forgot to put the owls up there. So you put the owls up there will help. Where I'm considering shooting them, but I'm not sure how well that's going to go over with the rest of the staff. And, well, PETA, stupid ass birds. But the birds, they drive you fucking crazy after a while.
That's definitely if there's no music in here, this would drive me bananas. Like I was training.
No, it's crazy. You know, you
Yeah.
got the music actually kicks the birds away.
Yeah.
You know, it drives them fucking. Well, I don't know if it kicks them away, but depends what the music is. You know, I'm gonna jump on my Instagram because I asked people. I think I tagged you, and I went to tag. I don't. You're not on Instagram anymore.
I am, but I don't have it on. I took all social media off my phone. It was awesome.
Because I'm like, I'm gonna tag him. And then I'm like, wait a minute. And then I was too lazy to start looking through all the different Matt Rhodes that are on Instagram. I'm like, fuck it.
There are different ones. Someone else has my name. What the? So if I Google me, there's other people.
And trust me, they're more popular than you.
No
they're
doubt.
not as good of people, but they're more popular than you.
No doubt. Thanks, Dave. You want to come to my house and kick my dog?
Sure, I'll kick it really hard. Right. If somebody wants to know if Jim would ever consider being a coach at, I already know the answer to most of these, at the college or pro level.
My wife always asks me this. She's like, how much money would someone have to pay you? And it would have to be significant. And there's a couple reasons why. One is if anyone's ever been involved with strength and conditioning at the collegiate level, and I would assume the pro is as bad or is worse, is one, that's about 50% of your job is working with the athletes and 50% is working with the admin and doing all that crap. I don't have the patience for that stuff. I'm not a very good. If you take me to a party, I'll be fine. I'll be able to socialize with everyone. You put me in front of admin who are trying to tell me what to do. I don't respond very well. I just tell them to go, fucking beat it.
I kind of know that.
Yeah. So I'm like, I'm not doing this, So I think that's, and the first day I was involved with the collegiate strength and conditioning, I couldn't believe how little strength and conditioning mattered to that job. Now, it doesn't mean that that's not a part of your job, but it's much more than that. And that's why the guys that are still there, man, it's got to be something you love to do and something you're willing to tolerate. Now, I'm sure there's coaches that just do the admin stuff really well and do the strength training really shitty, but because they do the admin stuff really well and they kiss a lot of ass, they still keep their job. And the other thing is control. We have total control here. NCAA has massive restrictions, and it's not like we beat the kids out, 10 hours a day or anything like that. But there's massive limitations about how much time you can spend, and in the pros, it's even worse. So, I don't do this for money, obviously. So I don't need the money. So it's like, well, what can I do that satisfies that itch that I love to do? I can help my community and still get a ton out of it. And this is like the best thing I've ever done. Now, it'd be great. Even LSU and Alabama, Ohio State, those guys are getting paid a lot of money. But there's a lot of other shit that goes with that too. And the other thing is, you guys know this, as soon as you have a bad season, guess the hammer's coming down pretty quick on you.
Someone has to be blamed.
Yeah.
Someone has to be the scapegoat.
The other thing I thought about too, and it's always, for years and years, we were kind of like the meathead laughingstock of the athlete world, right? He's just the dumb strength coach. And we went all the way in the other direction where everything got so fucking complicated, right? And you have to use all these fancy terms, and you wouldn't understand because our toe angle is here, and gotta, it can't be counterclockwise. It's gotta be clockwise. And I think a lot of that was in response to being kind of the meathead at low end of the totem pole.
Overcorrection.
Yes, overcorrection, and you see it a lot of times. But I am very happy with where I am. The coach I work for is awesome. We have a clear vision that we're all kind of working together, which is really nice. And so I don't know. It would have to be a lot of money. And then what am I going to move my family? I like living here.
No, I mean, it's a tough thing to really think about, right? Because granted, I'm sure we all would like to make more money.
Yes.
That's kind of a universal, but
is it worth
at what cost?
Yeah. I mean, you spent 3 decades trying to build your life into what it is now.
Yes.
And that's a lot of work and time. It's just I'm not saying that it's compliance or comfortable, because there's always still ups and downs.
Yes.
But to take all that 3 decades and just say, I'm going to throw that away for twice the revenue or 3 times the revenue or whatever. I don't know, man.
For me, it's been the potential stress and limitations and just like dealing with admin type stuff.
Yeah.
That's kind of kept me, I kind of like the level I'm at. It's, admin doesn't really look over my shoulder or do anything like that. And it's kind of like they expect me to do my job. I have a lot of leeway. Love to make more money. Not sure that all the other nonsense is worth it. Because like for me, I have a relationship with most of the coaches pretty good, right? And that's, I don't want to say it's solidified, but we have a relationship. So that's one thing I don't have to deal with that much. I don't have to rebuild relationships.
Yeah.
I have a relationship with the athletic training staff, which is that's usually a source of headbutting. It's like, which is weird to me, but like strength coaches and athletic trainers seem to be at odds. And it's like, we're all trying to get the kids ready. So I don't have to rebuild any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe it's complacency. I don't know. But it's there's a difference between like being comfortable and like kind of resting on your laurels or afraid to take the next step. And then there's a thing where like, listen, the next step's not a good step.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah. I mean, there's risk, right? But who's to say that there's got to be more to the decision than just money.
Yes.
Right. So,
well, let's say you I remember you saying like to get to $1 million is whatever, but to get to $5 million for a company requires, I'm just making this shit up, a little like 10% effort, whatever.
Yeah.
To get to 10 million is like 2,000% effort.
Yes.
So like, am I willing to give that 2,000%? Is it worth, and that's where you start, that's where your priorities come into play.
The other thing, for me at least, again, I'm 46, so like I kind of like my life.
Yeah.
Where I am, like outside of work.
Well, again,
so that's a whole nother. Now, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I probably would have chased that big logo and all that stuff. But it's like I like where I live. All the other stuff is pretty good, and then my day to day is awesome.
Yeah, and you worked really hard to get where you're at.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. So with Jim's business, that would have to go on a back burner, to be able to do that. And who's to say that he's just not 6 months or a year away from his revenue in his own business tripling, and then it would exceed what he would have made.
Yes.
So money can't be the variable.
No. I think what I tell my because I always have young assistants, 22 to 25, 26, something like that. And for them, in my opinion, money is the reason they move on for maybe a couple jobs. Then you get to a point where the money really has to be like almost life-changing.
Yes.
For it to be worthwhile. But, like when I got back into it, I was lucky because I had all the money from personal training. But I took a intern job at Yale. I worked for free. I didn't work very hard or very long, but still I was 36 years old. And then I took a job at Albany up in New York for 18 grand. And then I went to, where'd I go after that? Rhode Island for 30. So 18 to 30.
Yeah.
Not a lot of money, but in the situation I was in, like that made a difference. And then this one bumped me up even more. So it's like, now I'm at a point where, like I just said, it's got to be really worthwhile to change my life, change where I live, change every single thing about my day to day.
Yeah,
it's got to be,
If that change happens, I would guess it's not going to be money being the decision.
No,
there's going to be other.
It'll be
the only way money would be if it's like we're going to give you $12 million or something.
Yeah.
Like,
I'll see you. I don't like orange, but I'll wear it. We're in Adidas school. I love Adidas now, or whatever,
Yeah. Yes, that works.
But
I wasn't ready to jump to the next question, so we'll see. Jim, working on any new projects?
Yes. So I am tentatively starting a YouTube page. I already have a YouTube page technically, but we're going to start doing something tentatively, just a kind of a Q&A kind of thing where I sit down and talk for what we now found out should be around 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And so there's a couple reasons why obviously I need to do a better job marketing and stuff like that. It's getting in front of the camera is not a big deal, and scripting everything, it doesn't take me a long time. But the other thing is I'm trying to get my oldest son involved. We talked about this, and this is a way of him getting involved in the business, and this is a way of him and I hanging out. No, we're not hanging out physically, but we talk on the phone every day, and he's already given me tons of pointers. So the original, or I should say the first, God knows how long, and it's going to be rough. We don't know how to do all the little things, and but what does that say?
Yoke Bar.
Oh, okay, yeah. So anyway, to make a long story short, I'm gonna try and start that, and it'll be I'll have either a singular topic. The first one I did was, I think, top 3 mistakes people make with the 5-through-1 program. I'm going to do something like, do you want to be a high school football player? Like 5 things I think are super important for not so much like the most athletic and best kids. It's the kids that struggle. Like, these are the 5 tips I would give you to ensure that you'll get someplace, So stuff, things that I want to talk about, and obviously mostly training related and stuff. But you know how you can. I think about all the little things think we take for granted, right?
Yes.
It's like, wow, that people don't know that. And but anyway, that's what we want to do. When this is going to be done, I don't know. We're going to have a nice backlog of material set up, and I had to get on. Mason's, he's 17 years old. He's nervous as hell because he's like, I don't want to, what if I'm like, Mason, anything you screw up is fine. Like, because it's better than what I'm going to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's good for him, though, too, because he's going to have to learn how to turn down the noise.
Yeah.
Right? So when you become more public on YouTube or, whatever channel that you use to kind of push that a little bit, he's going to see the comments that we've been dealing with for 20-some years.
Boy, how many times have you gotten that question? How do you deal with criticism? And I was like, man, I don't even deal with it anymore. I was just
yeah, I mean, you learn to just turn it off.
In the beginning, you remember that?
No, I mean,
did
you see this? Did you see this? And it takes a while before we realize they're just fucking with us. But see, he doesn't know that.
Yeah, I know.
My kids don't know that. My staff doesn't know that sometimes. So they'll read things and they'll be like, what? It's like just this. Ignore it, and you got to learn how to ignore it. You can't just tell somebody to
no. You have to have some skin, and then you have to learn. Like, I'll never forget someone. Remember Dr. Ken?
Yes.
So some young kid who trained at Dr. Ken's garage or gym, whatever you want to call it, said something like, "Hey, did you hear this guy was talking trash about you on the internet or something?" And Dr. Ken didn't know. He's like, "Well, what did he say?" And then the guy read it off, and he's like, "Well, who is this guy?" And it's like, it's Big Squatter 1000. He's like, "Well, who the hell is he?" And he's like, "I don't know." He's like, "Well, how the fuck would he know?" And it was like this, like the young guy that was telling Dr. Ken this had this like epiphany. He's like, I guess he doesn't know. It's like, well, who cares? But it was like a true old man. Like, what does he know?
I remember when and we all went through this when I sort of started to become people. I used to stir up trouble when I first.
Oh, the strawman stuff was the best.
Yeah, wasn't it fun?
Yeah, that was a good one. We'll have to talk about
that.
That was a good one.
And I remember being all upset about it, not knowing how to deal with it. And I remember pissing and moaning about it at the gym one day. And Vincent's like, dude, you're somebody. Like, what are you talking about? I'm all mad. He's like, they don't talk about people that suck. And that helped a lot. But I still, ranted and raved at those nobodies or whatever you want to call them for a while until I was like, oh, God, I look like an idiot.
One of the things I always thought about was if Dave called me up and said, dude, you're a piece of shit, what did you do this for? That's something I take seriously. If Matt calls me up, I thought, so I started thinking, well, who do you take criticism from? I thought, like, let's say Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes. Like, it's got to be at least someone on your level a little bit. If he's not, then I'm like, then why would I care what he has to say? And that doesn't mean that some criticism isn't isn't needed.
No, I think it should be welcome.
But at the same time, if you're going to take something to heart, you have to be you have to be selective, or you're not going to do it. Like, no one would do anything in this earth if the critics had anything to do with it.
Yes, it's called constructive criticism.
Yeah.
But the way I've often looked at it is, if I'm doing something that is off base or whatever it is, the people that I would listen to that are going to criticize me, they're going to call me. They're going to get a hold of me personally. They're not going to.
They're not going to.
Because it matters. You know what I'm saying? And if they think it really matters and it's self-destructive or whatever it's going to be, they're going to want to actually say, so I hear it. You know, instead of going about it the whole other way, where this reminded me of, Louis used to come out to the warehouse, and there's several times that this happened. I don't want to mention anybody's name, but he comes out, and I don't know if it was Jim or myself. It was like, hey, did you see what so-and-so? And so-and-so happens to be a very big name in the industry, at least to us, right?
Yes.
Actually to everybody, not Louis. So we're talking about this, and Louis like, well, who the fuck is this?
Yeah.
What does he squat? Then after he left, Jim's like, he seriously doesn't know who X is?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, he doesn't. And it's like, that was kind of made me pivot my opinion the thing a little. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. It's not going to, maybe I shouldn't give a fuck either.
Yeah.
And I mean, this would be somebody that,
I know what this is. Yeah. I remember this.
And most people would take that criticism and be like, oh my God, and then try to pivot around to try to make it right with that person. He didn't even know who the fuck he was.
Yeah. I remember I did something similar to Chuck. I said something to Chuck about something, and Chuck isn't in this industry. He's a lifter.
Yeah.
And he had no idea, I don't know, whatever. He had no idea who this guy was. Again, someone who is heralded.
Yeah.
And I was like, the Chuck Vogelpohl doesn't give a shit.
Yeah. No, the way you got under his skin is you would find one of his competitors that he did know and say, hey, here, so was saying this. And then he's like, that motherfucker.
He said you didn't lock out your deadlift.
No, man, that's how you got under his skin. And trust me, I did that.
He said your grip strength was weak.
It was, but it had to be that. Anybody else, just like, who the hell's that? And no care whatsoever, just zero.
I remember we were doing the hex dumbbell holds that Chuck would do. Do you know what I'm talking about? You turn it upside down. And he was talking to me about it. He's like, you got to stand there and you feel that fucking hate going through your hands. You feel that? And I was like, no. And I was like, I guess I got to start getting fucking ready to. You feel that shit going through? Feel that rage and that hate?
You got to hit those ammonia capsules before you do the dumbbell holds. But do not.
So funny.
Yeah, do not touch the numbers.
That's right.
If your hand was close to the numbers,
you touch that with
you had to do it again.
Wedge your finger between the.
Yes, it was unbelievable. Yes, squeeze it like you're trying to break somebody's neck, and it's like, dude, it's a dumbbell.
But he'd set him up on either side of him, and then it looked like he was about to deadlift. You feel that fucking hate and rage through your fingers.
35 pounds.
And you see it just kind of his lats start getting engaged, and before he picked it up. Oh, I love that story. Oh.
No, it's funny because somebody was just out here yesterday that came to visit Westside at some point in time, and Chuck was dragging the sled, and I said, this guy come walking around the corner. It looked like he was ready to just kill somebody. And I hear stories like this. I'm like, he's the nicest guy in the world. And just when he was training, when he was doing it, he was very serious. Like we all were, just extremely serious about what he was doing. But it's so funny because that's what everybody sees him as.
Oh, yeah. The other thing that I don't think, when Chuck did an enormous amount of lat work. Enormous amount of lat work. And when I say enormous, whatever you think is a lot, this was before he...
24 sets of lats before.
At least.
Yeah, at least. Every grip.
Yeah, he'd have all these lat. Anyway, if you went to do lats with Chuck, you'd have whatever bar. And so he's like, you got 15 reps, but you don't start counting until you get to 14. He's like, all right, we got one. You're like, fuck me. I must have counted 15, Chuck.
It was some stupid shit like 3 sets with every attachment.
Yeah, and he did the Louis had one of the greatest chest supported rows ever.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
I don't know where the hell that thing came from, but I remember him, you'd go in on Friday, and he had already done lats and rack pulls before you squatted. And he had always perfectly coiffed hair. It was amazing. He must have woke up at like 3 a.m. to get ready.
We used to give him shit when we go to meets. But Joe McQuay gave him so much shit because he'd go to meets, he'd starch his shirts and iron his shirts before we go out. It's just shit like that, which is funnier than hell.
Is starching your suit, does that make it better? No, it makes it look good. Oh, I thought it gave some kind of rebound. No. I'm not going out there with a wrinkled suit.
Yeah.
So going into that, I don't want to retell the story about the volleyball player.
Yes, it's always funny though.
No, but when every time we've talked about that, it's funny. But I don't think we've ever talked about what you thought after you left there.
No, and I don't think we have.
Yeah, because I mean, we all trained there. We were used to that. You know, you came in. I mean, when you were driving home, like, what was your perception?
Well,
that was the dimmers.
Well, driving in, it was
Demarest. Yeah.
I was nervous.
Yeah,
like legit. And I pulled up and came in and did my thing and all that stuff. And while I was there, I felt really welcomed in a weird way. Like, I think Louis was really, really nice to me, and the guys none of you guys knew me, but everyone we make fun of the story of doing the belt squat, but you're just like, yeah,
we're all joking around.
Dude's here and whatever. And then when the morning session was up, I was ready to get back in my truck and go back to Pittsburgh. And Lou's like, stick around for the afternoon. I'm like, oh wow. And then after that, he's like, stick around, we're benching tomorrow. And it, like, a couple hour visit turned into 2 days. But it was, I think the thing that I remember the most, I think, is how helpful everybody was to someone who, you know, I certainly didn't look the part, but guys were helpful. Guys were all pretty cool. And I learned what things should look like kind of how tempo should be and stuff like that. But it was, I would say the ride home was a little bit of like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You know, because I just trained at Westside. Like, it was really, really cool because I never thought that I should be allowed in a place like that, you know, and it was really cool to have honestly, the best gym, powerlifting gym, just be like, yeah, come on in.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was a great experience. I loved it. It was awesome.
That's always, to me, like, you probably have different variations of what Westside is, but the Demarest was always, like, to me, Westside.
No, that was, I was there before that, but that, to me, I was only there a couple years after Demarest, but that was there the whole Demarest time. But with what you're talking about, the one thing Louis just kind of drilled into all of our heads was we become better lifters by helping other lifters. And it's true. I mean, I understand this more now, being older. The more you can teach and help others, the better you become. You become better at your craft. You become better at everything else. So he taught us all to be coaches. You know, so when people like you would come in, you know, that was an opportunity for us to be able to get better in our own self.
Well, I remember sitting, it must have been that Saturday. It doesn't matter what day it was. I remember George Halbert asking me questions.
Yes.
You know, and even at the time, I kind of knew he wasn't probably asking me questions, but he was probably trying to just maybe get some tidbit that maybe he could get an idea or something. You know what I mean? Like, I thought that was cool because I knew who he was. And
I remember when
we had like a 20-minute conversation. I'm like, oh, this is so cool.
It was the Arnold Classic where this was probably in 2000 when he was at 198 and he benched 683. And it was such a giant leap. The guy who before him maybe benched 600 or like the old record. And I remember, this was infancy of the internet. I remember we read about it. I'm like, there's no fucking way that's a typo. You know.
No.
I remember Kevin told me I was by the dumbbell racks at UK. He's like, you're not gonna believe what Halbert benched. I'm like, you know. And there was such a weird. I saw George do speed work with 315 and a doubled light band.
It was ridiculous.
And I just remember, like, how do you compete with that? I mean, it was so fast. And I was like, oh my God. No. For anyone double a light band on a bench and try and bench with it, it's not easy.
No, his speed was unbelievable.
So much power.
It's just crazy what that was. I think I'm supposed to give away a yoke bar. Is that right? Yes. So what do? They just have to go into the description and click on the link.
Yeah, we'll have a comment down in the comments where they can click on the link and then sign up through Facebook.
Yeah, so if somebody wants to win a free yoke bar, go to the description, click on the link, and follow whatever instructions are in there. And I did my part. There you go, man.
Good job, Dave.
Very cool. Very cool. Now we'll get back to regular
You did a great
scheduled
job.
programming. You know, what's that, my commercial? Also go to elitefts.com and buy something.
Self-sponsored.
All right, let's just randomly flip through here and see what pops up next. Season 3 hype. Also, fuck the questions. Just talk about whatever you want for 2 to 3 hours. End up being the best podcast anyhow. Well, that's pretty much what we do anyhow, and most of the time. Is it too much to do leg curls for accessories after glute ham raises for supplemental? I understand it's individual for recovery. It's overthinking things is what that is. So is doing leg curls after glute ham raises?
Just blast the shit out of them. Who cares? You're fine. I think one day I don't know, it might be a 6-month period. I made took out these sheets of 8 by whatever they are, 8 by 11, and every time I did, I think 5 reps on the glute ham raise, I'd make an X, and I ended up, I think I was like 400 or 500 reps of glute ham every month. This is when I was in Kentucky, because my hamstrings were not where they needed to be. But just doing and glute ham raise is obviously much better than leg curls. But if that's what you have access to, fucking do it.
Yeah.
You're fine. Like no one's ever been like, you know what, my hamstrings, legs too strong.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm in too good a shape.
Too muscular.
I got away from them for a long time. You know, just I don't know why. You know, just because I
Glute hams?
You know, because I got easier things to do.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest,
hard.
I got standing leg curls. I got all this other stuff.
Are you talking about glute ham raises you got away from?
Yeah, I got away from them for a few years.
Yeah.
You know, and then I tried to use like inverse curls and stuff like that. So I was doing all these other things. And JL was out training one of the Saturdays, and I still do my stupid squat stuff. And something was off, something didn't feel right. And he's like, you know, your hamstrings are weak. So I'm like, fuck it, okay, I'll go. And I couldn't do one glute ham raise. And I'm like, holy shit, you know. And I added them back in. I mean, it took a while to get back to be able to do sets of 20, you know, on the stupid thing. I couldn't do. And when you can't do one, that fucked me all up because I'm like, what do I do now?
How do I get better at something I can't do?
Well, the odd thing for me was all this stuff didn't keep my hamstrings strong enough to just do one body weight movement of the glute ham raise. And so nothing was transitional, I guess is the word I'm
I know
looking
what
for.
you're saying.
Like every exercise has got a regression, you know, and a progression. So I'm like, I guess I just need to try just every time I come in, just do negatives, you know, do whatever I can. And it didn't take long. It took about a month to be able to get up. But JL and I were just talking yesterday about this because I thanked him for telling me, you know, it's like, man, this helped because it helped with a lot of the other issues I was dealing with as well. And he said, you do realize that we used to do like 3-4 sets of 20 as part of our warm-up before we squatted, and it was no big deal. Then we would do them afterwards, weighted. And I'm like, you know what? You know, I you know, deprioritize something that I shouldn't, and I think a lot of coaches have as well. It's a simple thing, you know, but
well, you know what the other thing is, like, let's say you didn't get away from it. You only need to do a couple sets.
Yeah, I know that's the
to maintain.
If you would have done 2 to 3 sets of 15, you know, it wouldn't have. So like when we introduce a new exercise, we only do like 2 sets. And whatever, you know, some exercises lend themselves to different reps, but I'm like, we're only doing 2 sets. Don't worry about it. But then after 4 months, they're so much better, and it's without disrupting the workout. We started doing
add something smartly.
Yeah, then it doesn't. You don't need to go overboard with it. It just pound. You know, little. It's like knocking a big rock with a sledgehammer. It just takes time.
Chipping away. Yeah.
So that's one thing I've learned, because if you, for example, let's say your kids can't do glute ham raises. Well, you don't need to spend 40 minutes doing glute ham raises. Just everyone gets 2 sets or something. But we do that 3 days a week. All of a sudden, it takes what, 2 minutes?
No, it takes no time. It's crazy how the longer you do it, the more you kind of float away from just basic stuff. then you do, like, I started putting a weight vest on just to do accessory bench work like I used to all the time. And this is, I actually make myself laugh thinking about this, right? Because all the doctors have said, man, you shouldn't walk around with all that weight when I was 285.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, we talked about this yesterday. Yeah, yeah.
You don't want to do that, right? You shouldn't do that. But yet, put a weight vest on while you're walking because that's good. It's like so
That's what I said about smoking cigarettes. It gets my heart rate up. What's this whole fucking?
Why do I got to do cardio?
Yes, exactly.
Drink an energy drink and smoke a heater.
I asked our athletic trainer that, Maggie.
Yeah.
When I was at Arizona, I'm like, why don't I just fucking smoke cigarettes? And she looked at me. She's like, Jim.
Well, I mean,
I'm like, it's a legitimate question.
Yeah, I mean, what if you smoked while doing cardio?
Yeah.
You know.
Well, the other thing is I think they did some kind of study, like the athlete that has the highest heart rate over the longest period of time is a NASCAR driver.
Oh yeah, stress.
Yeah, well, you're in a car going 200 some odd miles an hour all the time. I thought that was interesting. I'm like, so you don't even need to work out. Just drive like
drive fast. Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah. Somebody here's asking, as a 52-year-old, what should you do to get a stronger bench?
Turn back time.
Yeah.
Build the time machine. Be 22. Mm-hmm. It's a loaded question because you know, how do I put this? When my bench struggled for a long time, and then I did like a quick assessment of what was good on me and what was bad, and that's what he needs to do. So he needs to. It could be as simple as, you know, push-ups or something. Mm-hmm. But I always tell the kids, you don't get to complain about anything in the weight room, like for your bench, if you can't do 50 straight push-ups. Mm-hmm. These are young kids, but I'm like, if you can't do the kind of the base, you can't do 15 pull-ups, then you don't get to complain about being weak on something because that's your weakness. Yeah. So I kind of did the same thing. I don't know, when I was at Kentucky, I kind of took an assessment of where I was at, and I was like, you know what, if I can't press 250 pounds over my head, like just, I'm like, my shoulders, like that's not even asking a lot.
Yeah.
If you look at some of those old time Olympic lifters back in the York days, like they used to press, and like those guys were pressing 300 some odd pounds over their head, and they weren't even power lifters. And I was like, is that really asking that much of me? So I got to the point where I said, I remember this, I'm like, listen, if I can press 400 over my head, I'll probably be able to bench 400. And I know it sounds ridiculous.
No, I get what you're saying because it's what I would say is, you know, from my own personal example story, whatever you want to say, is during COVID, you know, Ted and I were training more, and so he's getting on my ass, and he's like, just bench to your chest, because I couldn't touch my chest to the shoulder and all this other stuff. He's like, I don't care if you start with a broomstick, whatever it is, just start there. And it started, actually, I could do it, you know, like the bar, and I'm like, well, if I can do the bar, then I should be able to do 65 pounds. You know, kind of work from there. So
did you use the bumper plate 10s? I got bumper plate 5s.
It looks way better.
I got bumper
I just did
plate
4
5s
plates
for my shoulder shoulder rehab.
I try to only use the bumper plate quarters because you never have to take a 45 off to put a quarter on. And so what I learned from that is my bench now is it's 315, you know, and it's taken 2 years to be able to get there.
Yeah.
So what I had to realize is, we all know you don't want to ego lift, but what I had to do was not change my standard, but change my expectations, because it's fucking depressing. You know, when my best bench now.
I'm in that boat.
Yeah,
you're at the point now where if you maintain, that's a win.
Yeah.
You know,
well, I want to get 400. You know, so I want more, but
I understand.
But it's not this huge thing. You know, I'm grateful for what I was able to get back from that. So that, like I said, the standard isn't changing. I'm still going to progress to get better, but it took a while, because it was like, you know, 2.25. Like, I remember 245 was like I missed it.
I can even bench 245.
I mean, it was like a bitch, man. But you know, as you get older and you go through shit, say you get in a car accident or you have some medical issue that takes a year to recover from, you're starting it in the negative.
Yes.
You know, to be able to get back, and then you got to understand that. But it's the meathead in me is like, dude, you used to do this for 32.
Yeah. You know what? You get thankful for being able to do 225.
That's what I'm saying. You have to change your expectations, because you can do that, you know, where if you think back, there was a time, you know, right out of surgery or out of a hospital or whatever it was going to be, hell, there's a time you're like, I don't know if I can even train again. Yep. You know, I've had health issues where I'm like, they're telling me I'm dying. Like, well, fuck, you know. So that's the first thing. Once you realize, keep the standards are important. At least to me, like your own personal standards are important.
Well, I think you're I think there's a difference between standards for actions and standards as in weight.
Yes.
I guess
yes.
Your standards have to be high. There's like your rep discipline. That's what we always call. I tell that to kids. Your rep discipline is super important. But at 52, maybe getting a 500-pound bench is probably not the smartest thing for you. Mm-hmm. Or I don't know what he wants to bench, but there's always room for improvement within reason. But he's not 32. He's not 22 anymore.
Yeah. I mean, you got to balance the recovery.
Yeah.
All that. Now, what I will say is, I'm still conjugate. Whatever that even means anymore. But
training multiple skills in one training session.
No, see, I heard someone say that's no longer what conjugate is, and I was like, I don't even know. Like, you can't get to change the definition.
Yeah,
they changed.
You do something different now. Oh, it drove me bananas.
Somebody I do the AMA on Instagram. I just started doing it again. Asked the question. Somebody asked about can I do sled dragging for max effort? And I'm like, where? I'm like, huh? Like, how are you going to do a sled drag for one rep?
It's like somewhere I heard someone was talking about doing dynamic effort good mornings or something like that.
Yeah,
was that you? Did you say that to me?
That was one of the questions that was in that, and I was like, what do I had something ridiculous to say. No, don't do it.
Yeah. We can elaborate on that one because we used to. I mean, at Westside, that used to be part of the rotation was the max effort.
Well, he's talking about dynamic effort.
Oh, dynamic.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even like the max effort move to 5s.
Yeah.
But dynamic, no.
No. You know how dizzy you'd get?
No, it's kind of ridiculous from that perspective. But I will say, as I've gotten older, my dynamic work, I still do it, but I don't push with the same intent. In other words, it's 9 sets of 3.
You do sub-maximal work.
Yes, pretty much, because the dynamic work just hurts. It hurts too much to apply that much.
If you do dynamic work right, it sucks.
Yes.
And especially, it's easy when you're younger. It's fun when you're intermediate. And once you become... are we out of cigars from that?
No, I'm going to try one of these other ones.
Okay.
I took it out.
But once you get to a point where your inter and intramuscular coordination is dialed in, that stuff it'll ruin you.
Yeah.
Because everything is given on every single rep. And I always think when George Halbert benches 315 for his speed work with
boom.
Oh, shit.
Hey, that's all right.
When he does that for his speed work, like his calves are sore.
Because he knows how to use every ounce.
Yeah, so everything he's doing it's mentally it's very difficult too, and it's hard to understand that. Like when you do when you have a very experienced lifter doing croc rows, they always say, "Well, I did 3 sets." I'm like, "Well, you didn't do croc rows." He's like, "Well, I took him to failure." I'm like, "Well, you don't know how to take anything to failure."
Yeah.
If you can do I remember Croc said, "Hey, if you can do more than 1 set, you didn't." You didn't do the first set correctly. And it's hard to understand until you get to a certain point. So until then, just do high rep dumbbell rows.
Well, I try to think back to when I was training with Louis, because he was 52 at the time.
Yeah.
And what was he doing? How did he kind of moderate, change all that kind of stuff? And it was still obviously Conjugate was building it at the time, but there were things that he was doing a little bit differently than everybody else. So certain grips he wasn't using, certain things with that, and the certain max effort things that you wouldn't do, so you kind of learn, what to do, what not to do, and what your training goals are too.
I think one of the best things I learned from Lou, and I see it in my own training, and I see it with the kids' training, is we keep the barbell volume fairly low, and we keep the assistance fairly high, because it doesn't take as much out of you.
Yes.
It's the same thing I do with my guys.
So I always say we want our barbell work to be fast, explosive, and dialed in and perfect. Every rep, just like we would maybe what you're doing.
Yes.
And then we will do the insane amount of push-ups and chin-ups and dumbbell incline bench or stuff like that. And we found that our kids get super strong doing super sub-max stuff. That's it. Mm-hmm. Yep. And with high high rep assistance work.
Yeah,
And
it's
it
the
doesn't
hard-
mean a lot of assistance work. It just means like,
well done.
well done. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a hard thing I have like with our football team and our baseball team, because 18 to 22-year-old guys, we were the same way. Heavy. And you start, I'm like, I don't want you guys to struggle. Like, that's not the purpose. We want to move.
Yeah, but that's when you give them listen, we're doing push-ups. You got 200. Like, I'm just making this up. So now that scratches that itch for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we've done that. We had I did a whole bunch of new stuff this off season, and one of the things, we trained our trap bar differently, and it was a clusterfuck because the kids were using much lighter weight than they thought they should be. And it was a fight, Dave. I mean, a fucking fight. I can do more weight. I'm like, I don't give a shit what you can do. Buck stops here, buddy.
Yeah.
And so like after maybe 8 to 10 weeks, I kind of moved some of the kids up, and they were smoking weights. And then now it's like, whatever you want, I don't care. Just tell me what to do.
It just kills me now because remember when, James Smith, thinker was promoting the importance of submaximal.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I get 15 years ago, 20 years ago, people, whatever, you still need to do this, still need to do this. It's been like fucking 2 decades now, and we've seen it so many times that you don't have to train maximal like people think all the time.
Right.
And what I've seen with a lot of the lifters just here and from high school up, technique still matters.
Absolutely, especially for athletes.
Yes,
because the chance of
not to the degree with football players as it does with powerlifters.
No,
it
is a different. Yes. Well, we that's what we I want great rep integrity.
Yeah. Well, because the issue with the athletes is if they get hurt lifting, they're not there to lift.
Yeah,
they're there to play their sport.
What do you mean by rep integrity?
That means like rep integrity would be you take great pride in every single rep that you do, and that it is held to the highest standard possible. So, and I expect, because I always say each rep is your reputation. And so what this, we do a lot of this stuff at the school, but I want great discipline in every little thing everything we do is done like discipline, where the young kids come up, they get the seniors fuck them down. Like we have a standard here, but that carries over obviously to everyday life. I get that, but on the football field, I tell the kids all this. We're not going to win any games because we're going to out talent anyone. We will out discipline, and we will we will run you into the ground, and that's the goal. And the kids, once they kind of see once they go through an off season, and then they get on the field and they start burying motherfuckers, then they're like, oh, okay, now I get why so now those guys teach the younger guys about how important it is. So, but the real reason why is it keeps the weight down on the barbell. My goal isn't to put more weight on the barbell. My goal is to get the kids stronger and better football players. But not at the expense of a shitty squat, and their knees come in, and it's horrible, and it's to me it doesn't do any good. I always tell the kids 5 great reps, 5 fucking reps is better than 15, herky jerky reps. Yeah. And as soon as you start doing that, then let's say we're gonna do this set like I want it to be done. I'm going to coach you through this set, and they get done like, oh my God, that sucks. I'm like, yep, every set has to be exactly like that. I'm like, but they take pride in it.
Yeah. It's funny to me because I used to roll my eyes and stuff like that, not for the reasons that people think, just because I always just took it for granted.
Yes, that's the other thing, right? Yeah.
Like discipline, for instance, it's for those people that are listening that, are not the athletes and stuff like that. Just with your own training, there's so few people that I know that are actually seriously consistent and disciplined with their own training. People training for meets, people training for other things, they may have a program, protocol, whatever they have, template set up to train 4 days a week.
Yes.
And so 16 workouts a month, and they fucking miss half.
Yeah.
And to them, they're okay with that. That's why I used to roll my eyes, because I'm never okay with that. I'll go in. I'm not going to say I'm going to bust my ass. If I'm not feeling it, I'm still going to
do something.
And I'm going to do something. If not, I'm going to be there just to spot and be there for the other people.
So, that's why I changed my training.
Yeah.
I've talked about this before, but I got to a point, and I'm going to use some unflattering language. just the injuries, like I can't push on the bench, I can't push on the deadlift, and so I could still train, but it wasn't what I wanted. Like it'd be it just didn't scratch the itch for me, and I noticed like it affected every part of my life, and I don't mean that because I had a bad workout, I was a mean dad. I didn't have that same attention to detail, and I remember thinking, what have I like? I fucking hate how I turned into.
Yes.
And so I said, I'll never forget, Rhodes was probably around just this. I said, listen, I'm going to do this every single day, regardless of how I feel, regardless of anything else. I don't care how injured I am, how bad I feel, how, whatever. And so my training then became not about doing X, Y, and Z. It was being committed to do the thing I didn't really want to do all the time. Yes. And all of a sudden, it paid off in dividends in my relationship with my wife. I was a way better coach because I was so much more disciplined in every little thing I did. So it didn't matter how tired I was, 2 to 3 workouts a day, I just pounded the shit out of myself. And that's what changed me. It wasn't that I did all these push-ups and squats and chin-ups. It was I developed better discipline to get stuff done.
Yes.
And that changed me. And everyone like, you did all these squats, and like, dude, the squats didn't matter to me. Like, obviously physically it helps, but for me it was a test of my discipline to see what I was made of. And then you start reading about like, the Rangers doing stuff or the SEALs, and you're like, this is really not asking that much. Yeah. Really?
No.
We got PT for 6 hours a day. I can do something for an hour.
Yeah. Well, if somebody's if you think about what you just said, if somebody's a coach and they're working with other people, but they can't be disciplined in their own training.
Yeah.
They
drives me
can't be
insane.
a coach.
Well, when everyone asked me, like, how do you get the kids to buy in? I said, the most important thing is you show them that you're living up to a higher fucking standard in every area of your life than what you expect out of them. Every area has to be, top of how you treat other people, how you look, how your own train is. I tell the kids all the time, I will out-discipline any one of you motherfuckers. I will. You may be able to beat me in the prowler, but I'll run you fucking down. I'll be out here all night, and you're going to go home crying. I'm not that mean.
No, but I get what you're saying, and the people that are listening,
because the kids respect that.
I don't want people listening to misunderstand. We're not saying you have to set up. You're going to train 7 days a week, every single day a week.
No,
if you're not consistent now, be consistent twice a week.
Yes.
And when you're consistent with that, take it up.
Yes.
Push your. You know what I'm saying? Push your standard.
Yes.
Right. And
the kids can tell.
Yes.
They can tell.
Well, everybody can tell. Yeah, your wife can tell. Your friends can tell. Everybody can. I agree 100% with what Jim's saying.
And it was but for the people that, that doesn't have to be just training, obviously, but for us that live in the training world, this is something that represents a part of our identity and part of our personality. And that's why I attacked that first, and then everything kind of fell into place. But, obviously the kids, because I train in my garage and do all the weight vest walks and stuff, they see me, but the most important thing is you carry yourself differently.
Yes.
And then it was like, when a guy's shooting up heroin, it's like, well, I never shoot up in front of my son. And he's like, well, maybe your son doesn't know, but he knows something's not right.
Yeah.
When you're nodding off and being all fucking crazy, it's the same kind of idea. It's like the kids know in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and it's like, I like what you said, that it doesn't have to be just training.
No,
because myself personally, I write a little bit every day.
Yes.
Most of it will never be published.
Yes.
I read every day. These are things I just do every day. You think I want to do it every
day?
Day?
I know.
Look, I don't want to train 4 days a week all the time. Most of the time, I don't want to train at all. But I have that standard that I have to do this, because if I don't do this, then I'm going to have problems here.
Yep.
Yeah, well, how you do one thing's how you do everything. And it's one of the things I tell like our kids. I can watch you train in the weight room, and I can go tell your coach what you're good at and what you suck at. Like, if you complain, if you half-ass in the weight room, you do it at practice. You probably do it in a classroom. You probably do it in a relationship. Like, it's a habit. It's not. You know what I'm saying?
Well, what you're saying is it's a reflection of your actions are a reflection of your character.
Yeah.
There you go.
And you're helping these kids at a high school level do that. Which is a huge thing.
And I have to remember that too, because I remember how I was when I was in high school, and I'm like, man, I'm really expecting a lot of these kids sometimes, and I'm like, well, fuck it. Like, if I don't do it, someone worse is going to influence them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the thing is, they will reach the standard,
Yes.
even if it's insane. They
Yes.
will, because and I mean this in the best way. They don't know any better. Like,
Well, no one does.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I can do that because he thinks I can. Kinda.
Like when I saw Cam Haynes runs
Yeah.
26 miles every single day. He's a champion, what do you call it, ultra runner?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's been on Joe Rogan a bunch of times. He's a really prolific bow hunter. And anyway, to make a long story short, when I heard that, I was like, I couldn't, like, rewind. Like, did he say 26? And then all of a sudden, I'm like, holy shit. And now he's like, listen, I started off with like a mile. And I built, I mean, that's the other thing people need to understand. It takes time. But I realized, like, what can be accomplished.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I'm not ever going to be up to that standard or anything, but I can make my own high standard. And I remember when I started doing some of the stuff I was doing, I couldn't, when I first started, it was so low, like the reps and stuff like that. And now I get like, how can you do all those reps? I'm like, it's not even a big deal.
Yeah.
Like that's, it's not, you know, and I think, holy shit, it is kind of a big deal. I mean, when you look back, but.
Well, the first step is the biggest step, but I think most people make it too big of a step.
Yes, I started off.
Bite off way more than they can chew.
Yeah, I started off with 5 rounds.
Yeah. Oh God.
You know, 5.
Yeah,
I did
yeah.
5. 15, 10, 5 times, and I was like, "Woo, boy,
Yeah.
probably gonna join the army tomorrow."
Yeah. Exactly.
Heads up, ladies, killer coming through. And you know, but I started there, and I always it's the Joe DeFranco business model. I did that until I could do it with the flu, you know, smoking a cigarette, and then I progressed to the next thing. So I never. By that time, you know, you understand the Joe DeFranco model. Same kind of thing. I'm like, I got a lot of time here.
Yes.
Like, I'm not looking to do. I'm like, in a year, I want to be where here. So I'm like, I'll take 6 weeks to, you know, until I bump up a little bit again. So.
I mean, for some people, it may be just as simple as just walking to the
Yes.
sign and back.
Yes.
That's just do that 4 days a week.
Just touch your toes.
Well, yeah, hell. I mean, if you yes.
And then that turns into, oh, maybe I'll keep going and
Eventually.
I always, the way I did it, because I did something similar to you, because I'm very similar to what you're doing. And it's just like, I remember one day I was doing whatever push-ups I think it was. And I'm like, I really got to start doing 10. Like, it's to the point where it's easy.
Yes.
But it had been easy for a little while. So when I did bump it up, it wasn't this massive like shock to the system.
I
and
think
it just
people get wrapped up. I call it the Iron Mind training. Like every week I'm going to add 5 pounds or add a rep. It doesn't work like that. You got to, and I saw that with the kids. With our trap bar, we would stay at one weight for 8 weeks, and the kids like started to get bored. I'm like, all right, now we can go up a little bit.
Yes.
But what ended up happening was those 6 weeks, even though you're doing the same weight over and over again, you get better and better and faster and stronger. You may not see it, like, you know, with weight, but
it happens.
Their increase in strength was so astronomical. I couldn't believe it. I told Rhodes, I'm like, dude, I don't know. This is the best thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
You know,
if you don't impose the discipline in some way on yourself, life will impose it on you.
Oh, yeah.
It could be, you know, after a hip replacement, do we have a choice on walking every day? Right? If you end up in prison, do you have a choice? The discipline's going to be thrust upon you.
Yes.
You know, so what do you want to control your life, or do you want it to be controlled by, you know, other forces?
The same, like, see that with people who have type 2 diabetes. Like now you got to shoot insulin all the time, or you could just go walk and you know, start a habit. And you're right. Life now decided for you.
Exactly. And now that's it. You know, have a heart attack. Guess what? Now you're going to have to do the cardiac rehab, whatever it's going to be. Life will find a way. You know, I would rather
Jurassic Park right there.
You know, I want to control as much as my own fate as I possibly can. Let me assess my risk and benefit ratio. You know, and I don't want to, we go down that too far. We're going to.
No. I was just thinking about, boy.
Trying to back off of that one. Like, I don't want the fucking government telling me, you know. So we'll just back out of that one.
We'll tell you what's good for you, Dave. It's not good for us.
Yeah, let's find another question here real quick. God. Oh man, this is too long to read, dude. Do you know anybody that's come back from a broken forearm? I just wrote, yes, I do.
Ooh.
I had both bones put back together 12 weeks ago, been doing PT surgery. Here's the thing about coming back from injuries, and obviously I get a lot of questions around that. I don't care what the injury is, there's probably somebody out there that's come back from it. Mm-hmm. So if they've been able to come back from it because of the discipline, the will, desire, or whatever it is, then why can't you?
It's all that stuff we just talked about.
Yeah.
Be really patient, be almost under-train, let everything accumulate,
We call it front loading the rehab.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can come back from it, yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of, death. You're not going to come back from that, I suppose. But,
depends how good your doctor is.
Yeah, exactly. What was that one movie that they would kill themselves and come back from it from?
Flatliners.
Flatliners, yeah.
That was, God, what's her name? Julia Roberts and Kiefer Sutherland.
Yeah.
Man, that guy wrote a dissertation here. Oh, my God.
I can't, I'm just
What
going
are
to
some
try
of the
this.
funniest gym fails that you guys have seen?
I find those gym fail things terrifying. I never
Yeah.
watch any injury or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't
if that's
like
what
that
they're
stuff.
talking about.
I think they're asking about what we've seen in a gym, and I can't say I've ever really seen. I've been in private gyms.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
I saw Vincent. This always made me laugh. We were overhead pressing. I think he was getting ready to do one of those little strongman things he wanted to do. And he was pressing the weight, and then he would drop it. But it wasn't bumper plates or anything like that. Whatever. He drops it, it catches something, and shoots right back into his shins. And I couldn't stop laughing because I kind of saw it coming. And he wasn't a guy that would necessarily listen to some things. So I just didn't say anything.
Yeah.
But you kind of saw it. He'd press something stupid, and he'd come down with it, and he just, instead of catching it and setting it down in a manner that's a little safer, it would just be like a free fall. And it hit, and that bar shot out and hit his shin so hard, and I started laughing.
Well, he must not have been happy about
Oh no, it was, but he didn't get hurt.
Yeah.
But it hurt. You know what I mean? And I was like, well, saw that one coming.
Yeah, the gym fails that I've seen were like people getting hurt, like serious type.
Yeah.
I remember the first meet. This was your meet. It was your. How many meets did you run, Dave?
I don't know, 5, 6, something like that.
It was the second meet that I did of yours. So I don't know where that fell on the. I don't know if he ever did anything after that. There was a guy that from Tennessee. He had come up and trained with Kevin and I and Jason, and so we were friendly. I didn't really know him that well, and he was, I think, he was in my flight. And the flight was, I don't know how many people were in the flight, 10, 8?
15 maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, 10, 15.
And so we were all, we all got warmed up, and he's on the platform, and he broke his femur.
Oh, I remember that.
It sounded
yeah.
like someone smashed a baseball bat on another baseball bat. It was one of the most horrifying sounds. And I remember John Bott was like 2 or 3 after him. He's like, I saw him get up. He's like, I'm done.
No,
this was right after his
spiral
injury.
Fracture. It was loud.
So he is getting carted off because this was like a 30-minute that we had to get the ambulance there, and they cart him off by me. He's like, "Hey there, GM, squat something big." I was like, "I don't know."
Oh yeah. He actually trained with. No, he was. He trained with you guys off and on.
Yeah,
he visited
yeah.
Westside a few times, but man, that was the loudest one I ever heard.
Yeah.
We had a guy.
That was the first time I squatted 900. I remember that because I'm like, I'm gonna see what I'm made of right now. And oh my God! But I remember John, the guy right after, got out of the bar, did about 1/8 of a squat and said, "Fuck this."
Yeah.
And then John Bott's like, "Later, boys," because John had that horrible injury.
Yes,
Anyway.
Yeah.
I saw one of the guys I trained with broke his forearm. Benching,
Yep.
and on the way down or way up, it doesn't matter. And
It's tough.
yeah, that was rough. So to the guy that answered the forearm
Jesus
question,
Christ.
yeah, that's impressive, Dave. Is that a welder? That's impressive, dude.
Gotta have one of the fucking hoods.
That's probably not how you're supposed to do this, by the way.
that's funny. Jesus.
So you were saying?
Yeah.
You could hear it through the microphone, by the way.
Yeah, that's
It's like a pro.
Cooked the fucking thing.
propane.
Yeah. Guess that we don't know what the fuck we're doing.
Definitely broke the train of thought there.
Yeah.
What's next?
I don't know. I just ruined this. That's not what you're supposed to do. Oh my
that's
God.
good.
Are there any questions that come through on the super chat?
Boy, this place is smoking.
No. They don't give a shit.
People give a shit. We got $30, but
Nobody has any questions, so I'll go back to the Instagram.
so
That's why I haven't asked many questions, because normally they don't ask anything.
as Johnson said, can't think of a better way to start season 3.
Yeah, us sitting here not knowing what to talk about. There's a lot of shit we're going to talk about, but it ain't going to be on here.
Dave blowing his face off with his.
Yeah, just the torch
Welder.
thing just ended up being a big mistake. Don't torch a cigar. Let's put it that way.
Boy, it's smoky.
How do you feel about back off sets for after max effort or supplement?
It's fine.
Yeah.
You're good to go. You're good, buddy.
So AMRAP sets or
Yeah, whatever you got to do.
What do you call them? Joker sets or what the hell you got a name for?
Those are just supplemental stuff. That's supplemental work. So that's just a back off it's fine. It's fine. Dude, if you need more work at a lift and you want to do something else, you're fine. You have to understand that even if you do, we talked about this earlier, like let's say you doing sets of 5 at 75 or 70%, even though it's not hard, it still takes something out of you. So just understand if it's a big movement, done explosively, whether it's light or not, or heavy or whatever, it's still going to take something out of you, especially the older you are. There you go.
Somebody just asked, explain conjugate to a complete newbie. And I started laughing when I saw that because one of the seminars that we did many years ago, you got frustrated. It might have even been at Swiss. I think it was at Swiss.
No, I don't know.
Yeah, and that's why was it so complicated. And one day you go, and you push really hard for one rep, and another day you go, and there you go.
Done. Then bodybuild. Then you're good to go.
I guess if I was explaining conjugate for a newbie, it would be, you have speed work and you have max effort work. One day you push the bar with great intent with lower percentages, and the other day you max out, change the exercise.
The best way to I always tell people is concurrent training is raising multiple abilities at one time. Yeah. So, for example, with the kids that I work with, we want to get in better shape, we want to get faster, we want to get bigger, we want to get stronger. We do them all at the same time. We don't have a block just for speed,
Right.
a block just for conditioning. It doesn't work like that. It works very well for beginner lifters. So in the Westside training, you're trying to be faster, more explosive, stronger, which is the max effort, and then bigger.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a combination. So as an example, you have speed work. You want to be super explosive. That's your main focus is being. After that, what do you do, Dave? You bodybuild. You get big.
The big difference is with a lot of other training protocols, the main lift is most of the training.
Yes.
Where in conjugate, the main lift is probably 20% of what you're going to do volume-wise, maybe even less for that day.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of the weak point development is going to come from the accessories, the supplementals, stuff like that, where the main lift is being trained maximally or dynamically.
Yes.
And it relies on that. Other training methods are going to use the main lift for the technical work, the physical work, the mental work,
the
hypertrophy work,
the hypertrophy work, and all the other stuff.
So this allows you to have what we talked about earlier. Your main lift is either dynamic or max, and then everything else is done to get bigger. And just be honest, the majority of people listening to this right now need to put on muscle.
Yes.
So don't worry so much about weak points. Worry if you get bigger shoulders, stronger shoulder, whatever, all that stuff. So that's all it is. So I always like after you squat, let's say you do your, 8 sets of 2 or 10 sets, whatever it is now. And then after that, you're like, well, what do I need to build the squat? Well, I need quads, hamstrings, low back, abs. So you do lunges, glute ham raises, reverse hypers, and Roman chair sit-ups. There you go. So, and then, after the upper body day, you do dumbbell incline, chest supported rows, face pulls, curls, and dips or something, or tricep, whatever. There you go. So it's power bodybuild or max effort bodybuild.
Yeah. I mean, if it's a sport, I think the way that I would tend to look at it, and where I think a lot of coaches miss it, is figure out where your biggest carryover movements are. What can you, I mean, you've been doing this long enough. We could sit down and I could say, look, what exercises have you seen in the weight room over 30 years? Every time it got better, your athletes got better, right? That list is not going to be long.
No.
All right. It's going to trim down. Then I would say, okay, let's build those lifts. How do you build those lifts? Well, you can't just do those lifts to build those lifts. You got to have other things that kind of carry over in that. And then that makes up that part of the training. That's not talking about the other skill development that the athlete needs.
Right.
Where there is a law. I mean, that all has to be encompassed into the training. You got to take into consideration what's the coach doing with them on the field. Are they running them to death? What else is going on? And the younger you get, as Jim said, the athlete's not going to know. The coach isn't going to know because they're beginners. They need to build the muscle to be able to absorb impact. A bigger body, stronger body is going to be able to absorb contact, better than anything else. And that contact doesn't need to be another player whamming into them. It can be just the ability of them stopping to turn and cut.
It's the pounding of their sport.
Yes, the pounding
whatever
of their
it
sport.
is. Yeah.
Yes, they need to get stronger. I don't know what's so hard about that. It's like strength always, it gets popular for a little bit, then it always disappears, and you need to move better. Well, you know how you move better? If you're really weak,
Get stronger.
it gets stronger.
Well, I always you got the, what do they call that? The FMS and stuff like that. To get all the corrective exercises. And I've had this discussion.
What is that? What'd you say?
It's FMS, a functional movement screen.
Oh, okay.
And so I've always thought, and I don't want to say it's an argument with the athletic trainers, but let's say a kid comes in with 5 things that they're weak at. I've always thought, let's train them for 6 weeks. Let's keep an eye on it. Train them for 6 weeks, train them for 8 weeks, whatever it is. A bunch of those disappear.
Well, yeah.
So instead of worrying about, you're getting a kid from high school, for us, they're weak. Even if they squat 400 pounds, they're weak.
If they're lucky, they squat 400 pounds, Rhodes.
And then it's like, okay, a bunch of this stuff, let's say their knees come in and whatever it is, a bunch of those disappear. Whatever's left after, let's say it's 6 weeks, let's say it's 8 weeks, then we can worry about maybe some corrective exercises. But why spend time doing 5 different things when they're weak? Let's spend a little time just generally getting them stronger. Some of that, and they argue with me. I'm like, no, I'm definitely right. I've been around it long enough.
Disagree that you're wrong.
But it's like, why would we waste all that time and make getting stronger more complicated than it really is?
Yes. Well, eventually they want to work them into being able to get stronger, right? So isn't that the whole goal?
Yeah, that's the whole goal.
Yeah. In 3 months, we can start getting them stronger. And you're like,
we can get them stronger right now. Make some of those disappear. Spend less time with the stuff that, quite honestly, a lot of those kids don't want to do.
Yes.
And that's the other thing I always I talk to coaches about when they show me stuff. And I'm like, be honest with me. Would you want to do this program if you were, think about the mentality, not who you are now. Think about you're that 18-year-old fucking kid who wants to put his head through someone's fucking chest. Would you want to do this? They're like, well, I'm just being, then why do you think that they want to do this? That doesn't mean you have to throw everything away.
Right.
It just, and this past off season, I chucked a ton of shit out the window. I'm like, screw it. We're going fucking straight up old school shit going on now. And it's by far our best off season. And not just physically, but mentally. And the kids kind of get into it a little bit. And, but there you go. So it's I always think training is like a big block of marble and you're carving something out, and it's not, you never add anything to the marble, right? It's you chip away, and all of a sudden you stand back. And the bad thing is, I always say, we can justify anything.
Of course.
You know, like, well, you definitely need to do rack pulls, and you have a long list of things. But you know, after like a couple long walks, and you sit in bed, and you're like, we don't need to do rack pulls.
Yeah.
What a dumb.
Yeah.
So I always, you know, I have to do that regularly, and especially once the in season goes around or stuff like that, you're like, do we really need to do this? Like, we're okay.
Yeah.
And I just get rid of it, and.
I mean, common sense and critical thinking.
Oh, it's tough times.
It matters, man. I mean, it does. And people, it seems like there's this big, broad assumption that athletes are too strong. So they're too strong, so you have to do all these other things where they're weak as piss. Now, granted, there may be some, you know, outliers that they're there, but you're probably
generally
not working with them.
speaking, yeah, right.
Yeah, you're not. You know, you're working with people that you're a strength coach. You know, they need to be stronger. You know, it's kind of what it is.
Strength is never weakness. You're never going to get too strong.
It's like I remember someone talking about flexibility, like, well, we don't want them hypermobile. I'm like, how many people? I've known one guy in my life who played at Arizona was hypermobile. And I was like, one guy.
Yeah.
Been doing this for 30 years. I know one that was at least a male. You know, females it's a little different. But anyway, I just thought that was funny. It's like, yeah. That one guy who benched 500, yeah,
exactly.
I wish I had that problem all the time.
Well, and it's funny because we've been around a long time that we've seen these trends
come and go, and then get repackaged.
Yes.
Like, we trained in an era, like, I joke with the kids all the time. We didn't have foam rollers. Like, we made it through college football without foam rollers.
Amazing.
How the fuck did we do that? We made it through without corrective exercises. Not to say that those things aren't awesome tools, but are they necessary?
3 iterations of that corrective crap.
Are they necessary?
Yes.
You know,
In
do
some
they
cases,
help?
yes.
Yeah. But generally speaking, like, it's still not complicated, but we all know the reasons why it gets complicated. People are trying to make a name for themselves, make money. Why are you different than the next guy? Their desk or whatever. But really, at the end of the day, it's not hard.
Yeah, well, the other thing too is making people stronger is harder than the things that they're promoting.
I thought about that the other day.
And it's not sexy. It's not glamorous. It's like Jim's thing. Like, we're going to trap bar the same weight for 8 weeks. And it's like, well, it works.
Yeah.
We know it works. We can go back to the old Russian stuff and figure out the old step periodization they did where they would figure out a weight that they could do for 10.
You know, a lot of that
do it for
stuff
3s and do it for months.
Is so... it's not very, some of this stuff is not applicable anymore to the way that kids are today. I don't think people understand that. I never, like, Juliet came home from training one time. She's like, I'm a PE teacher who teaches them how to use a barbell. That's essentially what I am. She's like, these kids have no background.
Yeah.
And so I always think about that. Like, when you read something from like the 70s or 80s, those kids had a little bit of a background.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, well, we don't have that. So what do? Well, we have to, instead of complaining about it, let's do something about it. So let's be that, let's be the change that's needed. So I always, when you read all these, the Russian manuals are great. I'm like, the kid can't do a push-up. Like, do I really need, to measure his bar path on the clean? Or do we need to get this chunker to stop eating so much and run
go for a walk?
Yeah.
But it's just not, it's not super complicated. I don't think.
No.
It's just, it takes time, and it's kind of boring.
Yeah.
If you do it right, it's kind of boring, but it just takes time. It's just accumulate reps.
Unfortunately, positioning's a big thing in the industry. How can you make yourself stand out?
Yeah.
And what I've seen over all the years is it's gotten worse from that perspective.
Well, social media has probably gotten
the coaches. I mean, coaches, and I'm making a big assumption here, so take that for what it's worth. Coaches used to be the people behind the curtain, the people on the sidelines, the people you didn't know who they were.
Yeah.
You didn't know that. Now, the coach is more well known than the lifter or athlete sometimes. And so why? Because they're working so hard to position. And how do you position? How do you stand out? You got to do things differently, and
have a shtick.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you really care about the athletes? Do you care about their future? In other words, are you doing your job or are you marketing?
Yeah.
And, I understand I get it. You know, I understand that, but
There's still ways of doing it with some integrity, Dave.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And that's at the end of the day that you need to make them better, you know, and that's, as you said, it's not sexy. It's not flattering. You know, sometimes sometimes it is hard. I mean, if you get a kid that's been stuck, you say you got a senior, he's been working with you for 3 years, you know,
Yeah.
it's harder to get that bench to go up, you know, it is.
And the more their repetitions in their sport go up, the harder it is to
Yeah.
get the repetitions of the weight in the weight room to go up, depending on sport. But
Yes, but newbie gains are easy, right? At a certain point in time, you got to have conversations with the kid about going to bed earlier, not playing games all night long.
Yep.
And, you know, that's where it gets sticky, man, because you're not there and again, you don't want to be there.
No.
You know, but that's what it's going to take. You know, and it's easier to just say, oh, I just would rather have them do all these low end accessories and say that that's what they need to do. And then you don't have a metric to track.
Yes.
right,
You know, and the metric should be, you know, wins, losses, if they don't starting, you know, to get them playing time, you know, stuff like that. Those things matter. You know, are those low hanging things helping them get more playing time? You know, and
right, yep,
no, but they get more notoriety online,
Right.
Because what's that? That's interesting. I didn't know that. And then they use the bigger words, which blows my mind, you know, because if you can't, Mel Siff told me one time, if you can't explain things like they're to a third grader, then you don't know what you're talking about. And anybody that you see that's doing that is most of the time, not all the time, because I do know some people that they just speak that way. Very few, but I know some. And they don't know what they're doing. It's just positioning and marketing. And it's the industry.
big multi-syllabic words, and it's like, ah, he must be smart, must know what he's talking about. I don't even know how to spell that word. It's like, well,
Yes, it's like you just explained in 4 paragraphs, you know, a tricep extension.
yeah,
You know,
Did your triceps get pumped? Yep.
yeah,
You did it right.
or skull crusher.
Did it hurt?
You know what I'm saying?
You're good.
Yes, it's ridiculous.
The supine elbow extender.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean a skull crusher. Yeah.
So did I guilt trip anybody into asking a question?
No. Owen, wake up.
You did a little bit. One is, do you personally weld all of the equipment with that lighter?
Yeah, that's. I probably could.
Oh, boy.
That thing's impressive.
But we did get a question for Jim. What was
I
it
think they use that for
like training
cakes.
with Rhodes at Arizona? Apparently you heard.
I'm
you
sorry,
guys-
I interrupted. Start again.
No, you're good.
What's up now?
What was it like training with Rhodes at Arizona?
We didn't really train together.
No.
I mean, I partied a lot with Rhodes. A
Yeah,
lot.
we did. Yeah. Jim, what are you doing tonight?
Coming over and drinking.
Yeah.
Sounds good. But what happened, the one thing is, ironically, after, so I was still playing, and then Rhodes and one of our friends started training more,
Yeah.
ironically, after they,
Yeah.
and I would
Straight bodybuilding.
Yeah, and I would write all their programs for them, and
Yeah.
I would just, and so they would just go in and do it, and they got, fucking huge. And that's kind of how it started. And then Rhodes, where'd you go after that? Richmond?
I went to Richmond, coaching football.
So, yeah, and then it just started, and that's obviously when he went to Westside around that time and stuff. So it just started, but ironically, we didn't really train together.
No, we hung out, we partied.
Yeah, I was, we didn't, it was a different time. For college football, we didn't have really groups like we do today. Like how
We had
college
times when you could show up.
Yeah,
and-
you show up, you get, you do your lift, and I was in there all the time trying to eke out whatever I could on my pathetic, shitty fucking body. Yeah. To this day, I don't know how I played. I always, think about that. I'm like, Dick, the coaches really had pity on me. Like, kid shows up, he works pretty hard. Just throw him a bone every once in a while. Let him get CTE. We don't care.
Yeah.
Better him than us. Better him than a kid who's got talent.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many. I bet you I was drug tested almost 15 times when I was there. I got drug tested all the time, and I finally figured it out because they knew I wasn't taking anything. Like, and it was never steroids. It was always street drugs. Like, Wendler doesn't. He's a fucking nerd.
Yeah.
He's gonna show. He's piss clean. He'll be fine. Yeah. Oh my God, I think the first year I got piss tested like 7 times. I couldn't believe it.
How many times you get tested?
Never.
I got
Never
tested. Oh,
they knew.
God. What a pain in the ass.
Let's pull a couple more questions from YouTube, then we'll shut it down.
Kind of on the same football note, but how well does football carry over into strongman?
Huh?
Wow, that's interesting.
So
I think it's huge.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that the top of the strongman played football, but I think that having the foundation of physicality, having the aggressiveness, the competitiveness, I think that's huge. I don't think you can. It's hard to put into words, like when you're on a football field or playing a sport, the amount of pressure and I would say intensity. Like you do stuff as part of a group that you would never do, ever.
Yes.
You push yourself harder than people are like, I squatted really hard. I'm like, man, you have no fucking clue. Right. Or I did some conditioning. I remember conditioning in high school when I was at the Air Force Academy. There's no way I could bring myself to do that stuff.
Yeah.
Even obviously not today. So I think that you start to see what's possible because you're doing so in a pressured group setting in which you're not the most important person, I guess, and you're doing it for a group. So I think it's now whether or not like it transfers to the the lifts and stuff. That's genetics and that's a lot of other stuff. But I think playing a sport is massive. It really is. And you want to hear a funny story? We were on Friday one time. We were squatting and Lou said something to me one time like, "You'll never fucking do this, whatever." And I said. Said something about pressure. And I said, Lou, I've played in front of more people in one goddamn day than you've lifted in front of your whole fucking life. And he just went. And that's the thing with Lou. Like you couldn't back down. Like I respected the hell out of him. But I'm like, listen, if he says now and I don't say anything, it's game on. I'm like, fuck it. I'm like, and I remember saying something. I'm like, well, I thought he was gonna tell me to get the fucking loss, but he just took it and. I never said a word to me again.
No, you had to stand your ground.
Yeah, I'm like, if I might as well do it now. It's like, So that was always one of the. It's just a crazy moment. Had some good moments. I want to keep those to myself.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying.
It's tough. I got another one more.
So this one might have you might want to keep some more stuff to yourself. But,
no, whatever.
What choices inside training or outside of it, through high school, college, like young adulthood, do you feel like hindered your performance the most?
What was the what choices?
Bad choices.
Oh. Boy, I don't know. I don't know. I remember I was walking one time and I called my dad. I'm like, Dad, I just realized the shittiest thing about life is you only have one. And I said, and Rhodes and I talked about this. If I could go back with the same mind I had today, I would make entirely different choices. But you could have never talked me out of that. At that point.
Yeah.
So I don't have any regrets.
Yeah.
So I always think like, boy, if I would have done this, but I didn't have that same mindset. I remember like, I really wanted to, squat 1,000 and bench 600. Like that was it. Like if someone said, you probably need to lose weight, go, oh, you don't what the fuck do you know, you piece of shit, like, or whatever. Even playing football, you're never gonna make. I'm like, what the fuck do you know? Like this is where I'm headed. So I think, I don't know if there's really anything that hindered. I think the one thing, like maybe I could have probably drank less beer, but at the time, man, it was awesome. Like we had a great time together. And that's just part of the thing. There was never like, it's not like I did too much, tricep extensions, Dave. I should have done some curls. There's nothing like specific.
Yeah.
But like, like let's say like Dave, like you and I, we probably could have done a little more stretching.
Yeah.
But would you have done any more stretching?
No.
Yeah.
No.
You did exactly what you had to do and what you wanted to do. So I don't think there's anything that really hindered. But if I go back, it's just I would have a totally different life. And when I told that to my old man, I'm like, he's like, yep, fucking sucks, doesn't it? He doesn't swear, but he's like, yeah, it's tough, isn't it?
Yeah. What would you say?
I think I lean with Jim on this one. We all did some dumb stuff, but it's part of what got us it's why I'm here in the position I'm in. So there's nothing that stands out in my mind. It's like, man, I really should have done this differently, or this really got in the way. Like, it's in, when you're in the moment, same thing. Could have drank less beer, could have partied a little less, could have slept a little bit better, eat all that stuff. But it still got me what I did. And I don't regret anything I did or didn't do or whatever, as far as lifting wise, like I did what I did.
The thing is, I never missed a practice or a training session ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
So if I partied, I remember going in, I'd go in fucking hungover and I trained my ass off. It never occurred to me to take the day off. I never missed a practice because of anything. I never took practice off, because I was this or that. Like, I was there. And so, but man, when you're young, dude, it's good times. You go
it's part of the
pound 20 beers, and you're like, the next day, here we go, boys.
Yeah, but you need to walk into practice. You're like, oh, this is gonna suck. But you just did it, and would it have been better to not have? Yeah, definitely.
I don't know, because I'm coming from the other side. Training changed my life at a very young age. So I didn't drink, I didn't smoke. All I did was that. Everything was around that. So did it hinder, the sport performance? No, but if I'm going to look back,
maybe you said I should have been more social.
Yes. Is that why I'm so introverted now? Is it why I'm so hard to? Was it why my circle is so small? So had I been more social, would my relationships today be broader? I don't know. You can't change it. I am who I am today because of that. So it's a tough one to answer, because you can't change it. You can just base it. If I'm to give advice to somebody that's younger, I don't know if I would have been as serious as what I was, but that's what I needed at that time.
Well, it's like what Jim said. In that moment, that's where you were. That's what it was, and no one would have changed any of our minds.
No.
We had to go through it to then be able to look back and say, maybe. But then again, I'm still here. You're here because of all those choices. And it's like,
well, at a certain point too, we become adults and we realize what our shortcomings are, and then we make conscious choices. Do I want to change it or not? Right? Like, if I wanted to be more sociable, I can put the effort into actually doing that. I don't want to, so
that's how I lose weight. Like, you gonna get ripped? I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah. So
I personally know I'm not willing to give the effort. Yeah. So I'm like, okay with it being whatever it is.
Yeah. I think I can, I think everybody can blame some things, on their childhood up to a certain point, but at a point that you become cognitive of what it was, then that's your choice.
Like,
today.
if you're doing X, Y, and Z wrong, once you understand you're doing it wrong, now it's on your plate. You don't get to point the fingers.
That's right. It's your choice.
Yes.
So that's that one. So with that, we will shut this down. We'll thank everybody. If you want to have the opportunity to win a SS Yoke Bar, go to the description, click on the
best fucking bar I've ever used.
Best Yoke Bar. Yes. And
I got one. Fantastic.
Yeah. Thanks to Marek Health again. I got to quit saying that. Other labs. Marek Health again. And
Marek Labia.
Yes. And thank you guys for coming out. We'll do this again sometime. And thank you all. Bye.
Thank you.